Why don't you follow me to a place where we can be free again? DJ Scottos.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to the DJ Scottos What, Why Now podcast, where I'll be inviting special guests onto my show to answer questions about their life and success stories. In our first ever episode today, I wanted to invite a very special guest to find out how he became a founder of one of the UK top law firms with brands like Microsoft and BMW. Also about S-Jam Boxing, who manages the likes of Joe Joyce, Flora Mark Hugh, and also his involvement with Oldham Football Club. So I'm really excited to introduce our special guest today. Let's make some virtual noise for Adam Morallee.
Hi, Scott. Thanks, mate.
No, welcome at all. Firstly, thank you so much for being my first guest to join my new podcast. How are you, by the way?
Yeah, good. Quite early for me. 8:30 in the morning. Normally, like up at night.
I will talk about a little bit how what's a normal day like in your world, but also just for people that are listening. I've actually known Adam for about 2 years as our daughters play football together at, I will put it there, Welling United, now under 12s red team. And Adam, I don't know, you probably, we did talk about this, but obviously Holly and I were, I was looking, I definitely recognise this guy. I recognise Adam. I don't know where, I don't know how, but I just know, I know his face from somewhere. And I did say to you, I was watching IFL TV, which for those who don't know, it's like another YouTube boxing channel. And there he was sitting next to Joe Joyce as his boxing manager. And then everything else started to come out about, things I remembered you on YouTube and on TV with your involvement with David Haye and the Bellew conference, which again we'll come on and talk about later. So that was just mad to see that we're talking about our kids playing under 12 football, and then suddenly our conversations have now changed. So but it's mad, isn't it? It's just a small world. But before I start asking questions about you, and we'll go into a bit more detail, I want to make sure that everybody please subscribe, comment, share, and like. This is my first ever podcast, and I will be looking at all the comments, all the feedback, good and bad, because this is something that I want to do on a weekly basis. And so hopefully positive, but share it with all your loved ones, your friends. Sharing is caring, all that kind of stuff. So where did you grow up, by the way? Where did you live?
In Orpington, just around the corner.
So you've really kind of stayed in the area all of your life?
Not really. I went to school around here. I went to St Olave's and then went to uni in Liverpool, and then came back and lived in North London because I thought, I don't really want to live back in Orpington. Nothing against Orpington, but I just thought, you want to kind of move on with your life. And then lived in Clapham and had kids. And my dad was driving up every day from Orpington to look after my now oldest daughter, every 2 or 3 days. Yeah. And I just felt it'd be better to be closer to him for childcare. So we moved nearer to there, to a place called Chislehurst, and haven't moved back. So yeah, on the one hand, I've never kind of left, but on the other hand, I really wanted to leave.
That makes sense. So tell me a bit about your childhood. What was the best part of it?
Best part of it? I mean, it was probably pretty boring, to be honest. My brother was 5 years older than me, and he left home quite early. So from about 12, 13, I was in a house on my own, and we didn't have phones. We didn't have. You had like 4 channels on the TV.
I know, yeah.
I was mad. I was sport mad at that age, and was just waiting because I don't think they had in the 80s. Didn't have many live games on.
No.
So it was just like waiting maybe for Match of the Day or Grandstand to come on a Saturday, and then pretty unexciting childhood. I used to go on holiday. My mum's Egyptian, my dad's English. I used to go on holiday for 2 years to Egypt, and that was it. And it was go to visit my mum's village. that was it. One holiday every 2 years, and yeah, otherwise just like kicking around at home. And I think it was very, very different back then in terms of like if you went to meet your mates, you'd go meet them on like, I don't know, by McDonald's in Bromley, and then if they didn't turn up, that was it. You just went home, didn't you?
That's it.
You couldn't really call them up.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like, there's no social media. There's no Virgin or Sky, and like you say, or even, like a mobile. Like you say, if you have a phone, you have to wait at home and hope the home phone would ring, and then your parents would be listening to phone calls. It's just so strange back then. So you mentioned about your brother. So you just got one brother, an older one. You've got any brothers or sisters?
No, I've got one older brother, and he left. He went to live in Japan from quite an early age, and he's an artist and healer now. Very different to me. Very different to me. But it kind of meant that through my kind of younger years, teenage years, I was in the house of my own with my mum and dad. So it was a bit like being an only child. Yeah.
So what was it? I sort of did touch on it, but what was like a favourite childhood memory then? You mentioned about going to Egypt, like being on holiday and stuff, and you mentioned about being on your own. Was there any favourite childhood memories?
Yeah, I think that you tend to kind of romanticize things, don't you, about things that happened in the past. I think that I look back on it now and I probably do romanticize going to Egypt, but it was pretty wasn't exactly an experience which I looked forward to, put it that way. It was like, I was a young kind of mollycoddled kid from southeast London that went to this village and just got bitten by mosquitoes, and there was no running water and there was no electricity, and it was all like, when is this holiday going to end? Then I can come back like 30 years later and be, oh, what an amazing experience, how cultural, great experience. But it's lovely seeing my family. Like, I love my family. It was actually, I never used to really understand it. There was, when we arrived, got a big family out in Egypt, and when we arrived, there was there were all these ladies that turned up that were crying that we'd arrived. Right. Crying with happiness, I suppose, that we'd arrived. And then the whole time we were there for 2 weeks and never see them. And then when we left, they'd turn up again and they'd be crying again. And it was, I know, I'm not sure who they were, but it was very, not disconcerting, but it was just very strange. I didn't really understand what was going on and why people were crying, because I guess one thing that I definitely kind of felt growing up was being half Egyptian, half English. When you're in Egypt, I was a bit of a freak, like a bit like, who is this thing? He kind of looks Egyptian, but he's not really Egyptian. And then back in England, it was like, you definitely didn't fit in England. Yeah, right. As in, it was back in the 80s. Everyone thought I was like Indian or Pakistani, whatever. Right. It was just very, very different to how it is now. Yeah. So I guess one of my enduring childhood memories is I never really felt like totally, like I didn't go back to Egypt and feel like I'm at home. I didn't really. And here, I guess people always point out the differences, don't they? Yeah. I don't want to obviously open up any kind of sort of, I don't know, sort of bad memories of this, I guess. But obviously, no, it's fine. It's fine.
No, but you mentioned there about obviously not feeling at home, even in the UK and stuff. But like, is it again because? But I know back then, as boys, I guess, but we're very similar age. It's like you kind of like didn't talk about stuff like that, did you? You just sort of had to sort of get on with it and stuff. But yeah, obviously, like you say, people thinking that you're not English and having maybe looking slightly, half Egyptian, and people, because I've got like a Polish name, by the way. I can't compare that with you, but I used to get a big take about me saying that people can understand. Oh, you Polish then, or do you speak Polish? And they say Migowski in about 54 different ways. And I feel sorry for my kids now. I have to go through it. But do you talk Egyptian, by the way? Can you talk the language?
Not really. So my mum came over when she was 18. She left the village, came over when she was about 18. And she speaks English with an accent, and she didn't want me and my brother to have an accent growing up with English. Right. I think now you look at the science, and actually, if you get taught another language at an early age, it doesn't affect your accent. And also, you're very good at learning, aren't you? The way that the kids pick it up at that age, it's just incredible, isn't it? So I didn't learn it. I learned it at school. I learned a little bit at school, so I can speak a little bit to my family in Egypt. But no, not really, which is a bit sad actually. Wish I could learn. I wish I could speak it fluently. That'd be amazing.
And you obviously travel a lot, right? That's one of the things I used to wish I'd took French or Spanish, because when you're on a plane or a bus or you're in another country and they hear people talking, and I'm not like very nosy, but you do love to know what they're talking about or about you. I'd love to be able to talk another language, but so that's why I definitely probably like yourself trying to encourage the kids to try and speak language. It's so important. You mentioned your parents. What were your parents like, and what sort of impact did they have on your sort of your career, I guess, and your life?
Yeah, big impacts. My mum came from a village in Egypt. Where really in the village the ladies really just have kids and look after the house. That's all they do. They did, certainly back in when she left in the 60s, they certainly didn't have didn't have careers outside of the house. And so I think it's quite a bold move for her to leave when she was 17, 18, I think. Came to England and met my dad. He was a guy from Yorkshire. He was he was at Oxford University, and she was working in a bar there. And they met there. Two very different people. And yeah, I guess I saw my dad. He ran the UK arm of a Norwegian business, so I saw him. He worked very, very hard, effectively running his own business. But I never, at an early age, I never had it in my mind that I had no desire to run my own business whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
I guess I just wanted to, like many people, I was good at school, and I liked the kind of thumbs up, like the well done, and I wanted to continue the well dones. That was my career path. Just you're good at school, just keep on having people tell you well done.
Yeah.
Not a brilliant career plan, is it?
No, it's not. But I can relate to that because I never thought I would get into the sort of the business that I sort of in the industry that I got into. Right. So yeah. So basically, you mentioned about the thumbs up, and never thought that you'd see yourself running lots of businesses, which we'll come on to a bit later. But did you have any sort of other sort of idea maybe about what you wanted to do? You mentioned the thumbs up bit, but is there anything else other than maybe running your own business that you had some idea?
I wanted to be a professional golfer.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. So
was you playing golf then at the time?
Yeah, I was playing golf about 14 years old. I was at a good handicap, low handicap, and played at a decent level, played a lot of junior golf in Kent, and thought I could be a professional golfer. But then I played someone in a match once. It was just so much better than me.
Right.
And I was so upset afterwards. I just realised, even though I was really, really good, I was nowhere near that level.
Yeah. So what age was that then?
14, 15.
14. And what handicap was you at then?
4, 5, something like that.
Wow.
A bit lower.
See, so all the research that I did, Adam, that didn't see any of the golfing stuff come up until, which is great. This is why we're doing this, because because I played golf and but even to be a 4 or 5 handicap at that age, that is bloody good. But like you say, there's levels, isn't there? There's levels when you play.
There's levels, yeah. I was very, very dedicated. No one was spending as much time with me practicing, so I had all that dedication. But in terms of the natural talent, I actually think I had a good mental side for it as well. But I just wasn't as naturally talented as some people, and just couldn't do it.
Wow. So are you still playing golf though? Do you still play when you get
about once, twice a year. Yeah.
And what handicap would you say now? Because I know there's obviously
12,
people talk about
12.
badness and
Probably
stuff.
drop about 10 shots in the first 6 holes, and then have to try and remember how to play again. But the thing about golf is if you want to be good at it, you got to keep constantly practicing it. Yeah. You got to keep constantly practicing, and I don't do that.
I know I could talk about golf all day long, and I know with golf it's just like one of those things where when you've got to a better level than I ever did, and to get to that level, and then when you play now, it must be even more frustrating because you can do those sort of things. So we have to play golf one day, by the way. So moving on then. So you obviously the career, obviously the golf didn't happen. You started to move on. You then met your lovely wife, I guess, at some point in your. Where did you meet her?
I met her in a nightclub in Tottenham Court Road.
Okay. Which club did you meet, and how did you meet? What did you say? And
I can't remember actually the name. Oh God, I can't believe I've forgotten the name of it. It was right on the corner of Oxford Street, and she was a friend of a friend. So it was like a warm intro. I think it was always, again, very different now than it is to back then. But it was always difficult, coming up with the first move, wasn't it? I always struggle with that.
No one likes the. Sorry, can you can you go away, please? I've got a boyfriend. I'm not very good at that, but it obviously worked. How old was you when you first met? And how old was you when you got married?
I was 24 when I met her. Married when I was 28.
Nice.
So I've been married for a little while now.
Don't want to give your age away there.
No, it's like 17 years.
Wow. So obviously I've met your two lovely girls. So obviously both of them very, very talented, by the way. And obviously seeing Ellie play with Ava and that team, and again we could go off that conversation on how well they've done and how good that team could be. They are doing well, aren't they? But what would you say has been the proudest moment been so far with them both?
God, that's a good question. I think what Ellie's achieved in football, considering that team got routinely beaten 8-0 every week for months.
That's painful, isn't it? Watching that.
I think watching her turn that around has been very, I think, brilliant for me, brilliant for the family, brilliant for her, and definitely with that. And then with Evie, I think she's like a really good dancer, and seeing how I guess what's impressive to a parent at least is watching your children cope with adversity and get over that adversity. That's been the most kind of impressive thing they've done. I think, you've always got to be careful that it's easy when you've got girls, I suppose, in one way, but you don't try and get your kids to kind of follow your life path and do the things you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge to try and
is
not do that. And so with them, they do like dancing, which I never did, and all those things. So it's good for them. I think it's really, really positive and healthy for them to do those things. But yeah, overcoming adversity in those ways has been very impressive.
No, I've got to say, even talk about Ellie again, and I'm not saying it's because you're dad. I've talked to you about it before, but for me to see that she plays in defence, they've got a great partnership at the back, but the way how she's progressed and there was one moment I remember when we were playing a game, and I remember she's become much more physical. And I mean, one of the things you said to you, that was one thing that she wasn't probably as good at the beginning, but she's become much more physical and she's become faster as well. And I remember one where she actually sort of did a challenge and basically challenged the girl, which is actually natural. We all do it, and took the ball, and I think they took the girl, and the girl started crying. And I remember she got really upset about it. I was like, I said, Ellie, this is what you've got to do. And she was like, oh, okay. And I think she did it again. And she looked back at you and thought, do I cry? Do I get upset about it? And have I done something wrong? And no, this is what you've got to do. It was absolutely amazing to see that she did something right. But then, because she obviously accidentally, you don't want to hurt anybody, but it happens. And it was such a moment when she looked around and got upset. It was like, Ellie, don't cry. We all started clapping, going, well done. She was like, okay. I thought I was going to be in trouble with my dad here, but that's one of my memories of her. And she's so brilliant. Like, she's so quick as well. Like, and she's not the biggest, but she's so good at getting the ball back. And you should be very proud of that, definitely.
Yeah.
So one for the future, you guys, watch out for that. So obviously we talked about your wife, talked about your parents. So who was the most influential person in your life, and how did they impact you?
I guess one of the things look, you got your mum and dad. They're probably the most influential people in my life, as in I spent the most time with them and I kind of observed them the most. I think one of the things but neither of them were involved in law or anything like that, and they didn't have any contacts. No, to be fair, my dad had one contact that I once met, but apart from that, he didn't really have that kind of leg up into the professional world. So I'd actually say, starting off in there, I was probably quite hampered by my naivety in the professional world. When I went into it, I didn't really know how to handle myself. Like, I was so naive that I remember when I first applied for a law job, I worked for my dad, did a part-time job for my dad, and I was so naive that I actually wrote his name down as a referee. I remember the recruiter going, are you for real? Is this serious? You put your own dad down as a referee. And I was thinking, but I work for him and he's going to say something nice about me, so why wouldn't I do that? And I was like, oh my, now I look back on it, I think, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing that for? So I don't think I think maybe one of the reasons I went out on my own was that I didn't really have anyone necessarily to look up to.
Right.
And to think, I want to be like that person. And I think that is probably the case for a lot of people who do stuff on their own, where they go, there's no path I can see in front of me which I want to copy. So I'll do something different.
No, that makes complete sense. I've thought about it. I've considered it a few times, and I've sort of been too scared to do it. But no, obviously it's obviously paid off for you, and which we'll come on to a bit more. So, what stage of your career when you wanted to get into sports to be a sports lawyer?
So I started off my career at a city firm in London, and as a trainee, it's a very, very traditional place. And as a trainee, I got to do some boxing work. I worked for Frank Warren, believe it or not, who 23 years later is promoting Joe Joyce's next big fight.
Yeah.
So the reason being that at this firm, boxing promoters and boxing and sport was seen as kind of pretty low level work for effectively low level people, without being horrible. It's not working for a PLC company doing its float. So they gave it to the lowest possible people, which was me. So really, I got into it at a very young, early age, and then continued doing sports law throughout my career, and then ended up heading up the sports law group at the firm I was at, Mishcons, probably about 10 years later.
So in 2014, you set up Brand Smiths. Why did you decide to set up your own company then?
So I'd been at Mishcons for a while. I'd made partner when I was relatively young in 2008. So I was about 32, I think, 31, 32. And I guess, you get to a place within a law firm where, well, you take it back a step. When I was talking about the pats on the back, you do well at school, you get a tick, you do your A-levels, you go to uni, then you've got to do something called the LPC to become a lawyer. You do that well, then you get a training contract. Then once you've got a training contract, you get qualified. Each of these things is its own like little mini test. But then you get qualified, then you become a senior associate, and then you become a partner. So I've done all these like 8, 9 things, become a partner. And I was like, is this it? I've done absolutely everything. I've not done anything wrong ever. Like I've always made sure I did my homework and I did this and I did this. And then you go on to another thing. Oh, now you're a partner. Then you got to be a junior partner. Then you got to be a senior partner. And I was prepared to play the game, and I played the game for another 6 years from there. But I realised that, no disrespect to my old firm, it's one of the best firms in London actually, but it was a different kind of lifestyle. If you wanted to stay there, it wasn't about doing good work for clients and creating things. It was about really preserving your position in that big environment. That was your number one thing you had to focus on. So you spent all this time getting to a certain place and trying to do good things, and then you realize your focus has to shift properly to I'm sure they disagree with this actually, but your focus shifts properly to preserving your own position. And I just wasn't really into that, and I kind of figured it out. That's what it would be. So I thought, right, I still want to work with clients. I want to do something different. I had a lot of big ideas about how I thought lawyers could kind of thrive in a better space. So yeah, I just set up my own firm.
And a lot, I guess, looking at from 2014, which we'll go into a bit more detail, but you mentioned some of the clients you've worked with and some of the brands are absolutely incredible. Like as I mentioned at the beginning of the intro about Microsoft and BMW, and there's obviously a lot more of these. With all these people that you've been working with, which one or two would you say have been quite memorable clients or deals? Anything you could give any sort of examples of?
Yeah, I acted for a lot of big brands because I brought a lot of big brands to the firm because I acted for them at my old place. But the client that people know me well for acting for was Gordon Ramsay. I worked for Gordon for many, many years, helping him with problems that he had, including in particular a problem he had with his business, and it's kind of public what happened with his father-in-law, and how his father-in-law was involved in his business and was effectively doing bad things in the business.
Yeah.
And we ended up executing search and seizure orders on his kind of extended family's homes. And it went on for a long, long time. I got to know him really well, and he's a really kind of fascinating guy. actually, not what you see on the telly.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? They always say that what you see on telly is not always what they're really like. It's just their character, I guess, isn't it? But yeah, watching some of the programs is just. I always think to myself, how does he just? What it comes? How can you come out with that stuff and look somebody in the eyes and say like some of the food, some of the things he's in America where about where they go around and help people with restaurants and they come out and serve his food and he goes, this is absolutely awful, and these chefs have been doing it for like years and stuff and. They're like, it's I don't know. It's just how you can look somebody in the eyes and say that is pretty impressive. But,
I mean, I think he's got a pretty amazing brand, and he's done it. He's been at the top in time of TV terms for maybe 15, 20 years now. And even though I think it's fair to say a lot of his shows are very similar, they're effectively someone does something, it's not very good. He then makes it better. And it's better.
Yeah.
That same formula, but I think he's done, I don't know, 500 shows, 500 episodes of different shows. One of the highest paid people, certainly in the food space. So, like, incredible. I've got so much respect for what he's done.
So do you manage everything, all of that stuff? Are you is it just you?
I don't do anything for him in that space. Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. No.
For him, I only ever dealt with his problems.
Okay. Right. Okay. That makes sense. So obviously you talked about a little bit about how you got into brand Smiths and you kind of went through this sort of process and thought, what's kind of next. So what one piece of advice would you give someone just starting out as a sports lawyer now?
I think you've got to be, one of the things that's most overrated in sports law is your knowledge of the sport itself. So a lot of people want to be football lawyers because they know football inside out and they know this League Two player and this League One player. Whereas actually in sports law, whether you're in rugby or cricket or football, wherever, your clients really want you to know the law really well. And they want to know the law specific to that sport, like the regulations really well. That's what they really want you to know. They don't want you to turn up and be a big fanboy or fangirl about who played for who when. That's, right. I think, the biggest issue I see.
Yeah.
Be really, really, the piece of advice is be really, really good at law.
Okay.
Be really, really good at what you want to do. Because if you think about it, a football club that wants to use anyone, a doctor, any professional, they don't really care if the doctor knows who played for them in 1982 in the Bears Cup final. They want you to be the best doctor.
Yeah, no, that really makes sense. So then, you started working with David Haye, and I've got a few photos here, so which I thought would be good to start with. So, with regard to David Haye, how did this involve? Because I know I sort of read that you was his lawyer. Then it became a boxing manager. How did that evolve? And when did that start?
So David probably started around 2014, when I started at Brand Smiths, 2015. I'd been a lawyer in boxing for a long, long time and had worked for pretty much all the promoters. And David was already experienced two-time world champion, two-weight world champion, cruiserweight world champion, heavyweight world champion. And he'd been through the mill of having a manager, having a promoter, and he kind of realised that he was the value in the equation. And he was like, all I need is myself, really, and I need a lawyer to just help me with some of the contracts. And so I can't remember how we got in contact, but we got in contact with each other. And I really just kind of became his lawyer, doing what he thought were just the kind of lawyerly things that needed doing. I think he soon worked out that actually the lawyerly things were kind of everything in his promotional career. When you get to the top level, they are the major things that you need to look at. So we spoke about it and it became a management conversation at that point.
Yeah. So obviously these photos I think were the rematch at the top left there. You mentioned earlier, I didn't realise that you actually went to Liverpool University. So obviously the people in Liverpool got to know you quite well if they knew you then. And then you decided to get up at the press conference, and I think this is the rematch photo on the top left, right, where you then decided to take them on a little bit, right? What was the sort of the thinking behind that, or was it kind of a bit of a show? What was your?
Listen,
what did you want to do
within boxing? Most stuff is like you rarely get like a real, like really, really big, what you call beef, like where people really dislike each other. And when you do, it is very powerful and it really can drive pay-per-views and it can really, really drive a show. But, it's a promotion, it is show business. You are looking to create as much hype around it as possible. And I think David against Tony, when you look at that as a boxing match, neither of them had. I think Tony was a cruiserweight world champion, but there were no world titles on the line.
No.
It was really supposed to be Tony Bellew was supposed to be a keep busy fight for David because we wanted to organise him against Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
So that's what it's supposed to be, but it mushroomed into this big kind of grudge match that got the public going because you had David, the effectively rich guy from London, and Tony Bellew, the working class guy from Liverpool. And we were playing into those effective stereotypes. And so, yeah, it was kind of planned. I don't think I planned it to go as it went. That bit wasn't planned, but the speech, that aspect of it was planned. And then the funny thing was, so Tony Bellew called me Will from the In-Betweeners.
Yeah.
And then we got Jay from the In-Betweeners to come to the next press conference to kind of save me and help me out. It's all completely we had to pay the guy to come. And I still bump into people who are going, God, I was lucky that Jay was there to help you out.
No, really?
Yeah, and they think that he was just like passing by and he thought I looked like Will Mackenzie. So he came
I've got to say though, Adam, you do when I turn the glasses on and see some of the stuff on there, I've got to say, God, you do. There are some similarities. I hope you don't want me saying, mate. You do.
Well, apart from he's like, I get it, but apart from he's like a different nationality to me.
I know, but it's when you're clean shaven and you've got your glasses. There was, I never thought of that.
Oh yeah, look, I get it. I get it. It was good, but yeah, people do believe that this stuff kind of happens by accident.
Yeah,
and as in that Jay was there and he was just kind of helping us out, but it doesn't really work like that. Those promotions took a lot of planning, but they were really good promotions because, did really, really good pay-per-view numbers.
Oh, they did. I could tell, yeah. But can I just go back a year, though? When you did the first one, I was watching it the other day and, God, when you first got up, and I think it was the first time, and you could tell you looked very, it's been very new to you. I don't know if I'm saying, when you got up on the stage, they started going, who the F the hell are you?
Yeah, I know.
You look really like
it
looked like it was like the first time I don't know if it was, but I fell for you there. That's when it didn't look like it was planned at all. When you got up.
Oh no, that was completely different. Yeah,
yeah, that looked horrible. That looked really like you were trying to talk over the microphone, and they were like over sort of trying to shout as loud as possible. Who are you? Sort of stuff. How did you feel when you were up there doing that? Did you feel scared or nervous? What was your
totally? It was just totally surprising. That was the word. Like. You just go up there and you don't really, it doesn't sound like a really old person saying this, but you don't really get press conferences like that anymore.
No.
You don't really let the public in, and they were like a baying mob.
Yeah.
And there's actually some good footage of that, if you can find it, of David talking to them, because David loses his head a bit as well.
Yeah,
and they starts talking about their mums and stuff because they're all like having a go. It was really like a real aggressive energy in there. I probably didn't cope with it very well. I didn't know how to cope with it.
Yeah, like, but you look much better the second time. You look much better the second time when it rematched. It was like a year on or whatever long it was.
Because that was, you got to remember the second time that was all planned.
Yeah,
the second time was planned, and there was a purpose behind it, and you knew what we were trying to do, trying to drive views by doing stuff and having particular rivalry with Tony Bellew, and juxtaposing his working classness there against us being like the posh Londoners. That's what it was intended to do.
Yeah.
But the first time, there was no plan and just to stand up, and it was an intimidating atmosphere. But like, what do you do? Like, what do you do? What do you say?
Yeah. I know David Haye lost it a little bit. I think he started calling them retards and you lot of I'm going to do this. I'm going to smash your face in, Dave, to Tony Bellew. And you could tell that is like, he's lost it. He lost his head, didn't he? And I remember him sitting down and, then Tony Bellew stood up and he started going at him again. And yeah, it was great. And like I say, I love, like you say, you don't get this much now these days. And I love it. But yeah, it was nice to see the journey of it. I know you didn't get the right result, I guess. and
No,
obviously
we
it's a
didn't.
shame.
We didn't.
But you know, fair play, David Haye. Right? I know, given he's very good at promoting himself, but he was very gracious in both of the feats. You know, but he could have got out and started throwing chairs
I think
around.
David knows that he was coming towards the end of his career, and his body was kind of giving up on him. I mean, in his prime, there was very few people. Yeah, but there was David was. People forget like how good a boxer David was.
He was, yeah.
And what an incredible self-promoter he is. Like, there's no one. You think about it now, Scott. I know you like boxing, but there's not that many people comparable to David Haye now.
No,
Anthony Joshua was way bigger than David, but still didn't have David's kind of that spite, if you know what I mean.
No, it doesn't. It's very kind of. I know I say that they're kind of manufactured and they're robot. No, you're right. I do miss that. So obviously we mentioned about SJam, and you set up a business with SJam. Sorry, you set up a business with Sam Jones.
Yeah.
In 2017, this boxing agency. Why did you set that up, and why with Sam?
So, whilst working with David set up a promotional company, and I was helping him sign boxers to his promotional company. And one of those boxers was Joe Joyce. So when I first met Joe, we were signing him up to our promotional company. So I was kind of on the other side from Joe. And Sam was his kind of informal manager, like informal manager. And he was looking after him. And then we got talking. I spoke to David about it. And David actually suggested to me it would be a good idea to move into management. Having worked for all the promoters, I kind of understood the sport well, thought I could impact a lot. Again, I didn't start it off with any plan about how I'd change people's diet or strength or conditioning or any of that stuff, which has subsequently come in. And just kind of started off with Joe Joyce and Sam, and Sam and I went 50-50 on it.
Yeah. No, and so at the moment, then, how many fighters do you currently have under your wing?
10, 11 fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know took obviously a thing from your website. So you've got obviously Mark,
Darius, Florian, Guido, Joe, John Hedges, Fisher, Lisa, Sol, Lorraine, there's some others in there. Tommy Fletcher.
Taking Joe, obviously go talk about Joe Joyce in a second. Taking him out of the hat for a minute. Out of the rest of them, who do you feel's is the one that you're kind of most excited about? And I know this might put you on the spot a bit here.
That is like, which of your children do you like?
You like the most? Okay, so maybe the one that's the best. Maybe the one that you think that's got I don't know, like you know your fighters are the one that's you're most excited about.
And this isn't just like a diplomatic answer. I'm very excited about all of them, but I think in terms of what's different about some of them, I think Johnny Fisher is someone with very little amateur experience who is selling abnormal amounts of tickets. He's selling 2,500, 3,000 tickets on his own just to see him. And apart from Joe Joyce, who's obviously a big star now, none of the other boxers are selling that. And that's no disrespect to any of them, but he's just freakish at selling tickets. So I think he could have. He's a heavyweight, a local Essex boy. He's white, which sounds a bit racist, but is important in terms of his marketability to a certain fan base. And I think he could be really kind of huge.
How old is he?
Johnny is 22, 23.
22. So I think people forget, don't they, Adam, about actually, you've got being a boxer is one thing, about being talented, but like you say, there's another expectation about having to sell tickets, right? Like you don't really get that in many sports, do you? Right, where you play football, you play football, right, and that's it. You don't have to worry about bringing your family, but you won't bring your family along, but they get a free box or something. But as a boxer, it's like to get on a show with Frank Warren or Eddie Hearn and people like that, especially when you're the earlier stages, there's an expectation, isn't it, to sell?
Most boxers, more than 50% of boxers, don't get paid a purse when they start off. They just have to sell tickets, and they take a higher proportion of their ticket income. So if they don't sell tickets, they don't get paid anything. It's a brutal beginning to the sport, but it does teach a lot of good skills to the boxers, and it teaches selling, self-promotion.
A few more things that I want to talk to you about. Obviously, one of them was about Oldham. And the reason why I wanted to ask you about this, you obviously got involved with them in 2018, and it's fair to say there's a lot of stuff going on in Oldham. And I've been to Oldham before to a game. I know what the fans are like in general anyway. They're very passionate, but this is another level, right? Obviously the ownership and stuff going. What's your involvement with Oldham and, on a day-to-day basis?
So nothing now, zero, because the club's
Zero
been
now.
sold. I managed to sell the club, but for 3-4 years, there's a really a client of mine bought the club, and we helped him as a law firm buy the football club. He was an agent from the Middle East, a guy called Abdullah Lemsagam, who's very, very successful, kind of like the super agent of Qatar. He brought all the old Premier League players in, did very, very well. And I think he thought his connections in world football, like he's friends with Guardiola and Klopp and Mourinho and all these people, I think he thought that would help him in League One, League Two, but it didn't. And he put a load of money in, the club slid down the leagues. Things got worse and worse, and he eventually had to sell the club. But yeah, last year, my particular high point was when the Oldham fans did a poll on what they thought of people on the board, and it was me, Abdullah, and his brother. That we were the three people on the board, and I had the best approval rating because only 96% of people wanted me out.
Wow.
4% wanted me in, whereas Abdullah had 3% and someone else had 2%. So, but they just wanted us out because they thought Abdullah was the wrong owner. And I actually think he was the Oldham fans. I doubt they're listening to this, but if they are, they will think he's a terrible owner. But he made mistakes, but he really tried to do the right things. But now, I think our legacy within the club is I've managed to sell it to a local guy called Frank Rothwell, who's a guy from the area who's going to invest money in the club, and he's Oldham's mythical ideal owner.
Right. Okay.
I really hope it works out for them. Got a lot of love for the place.
I know local fans love somebody that's local, or in a football manager, I guess when somebody comes with the academy, they love all that sort of stuff. So and it's hard as being an owner if you're not from the country, or you make a bad decision, you sell a player that they love. That's it. It's so hard to turn fans back. And I've seen I was actually going to add some photos here about this. And I did want to ask you about your involvement with Paul Scholes. 31 days or something he was in charge. Was you involved in that process?
Yeah, I was. He just basically quit because he didn't fancy it anymore. Right. And he's got better things to do with his life. I think that's what he was basically saying, other than train League Two players. And he walked out, and we had this clause in the contract which basically said, if you leave, you have to effectively pay a release clause, because we thought that Paul could be such a good manager that other clubs would want him and would effectively, like a release clause, like a player, they'd buy him off us. But him resigning also invoked that release clause. So we had a big court case actually about whether or not he had to pay us the release clause, and it is a confidential award. I can't tell you what happened.
No, okay. No, I understand. Do you have any regrets getting involved with Oldham?
No, I don't think you can. Look, I don't think you can. Do I think it was the right decision? It sucked up a lot of time, and you could look at it and say it sucked up a lot of time, and what did you gain from that, or how beneficial was that to you? But I think that's sometimes the wrong way to look at decisions in life, as to always say, did I benefit from it? I think I learned a hell of a lot. I think it was very, very challenging, and I really hope it helps me in my life move forward. But I mean, to the outside world, it must have looked absolutely crazy. This guy who is from Southeast London going to Oldham matches and just getting stick all the time. Once I went to a match with one of my mates, and he was there. He goes, "Listen, I've got to tell you something, mate. It's Shane, who works in S-Jam with me. He said, I've got to tell you something. There are people out there with a coffin with your name on it."
Oh my God. I know you laugh at that, but that must be quite scary, mate. Do you know what I mean? That must be. I know you kind of got security and stuff. That must be quite scary, though, thinking that something can happen when you leave the ground.
Well, apparently it did. It was like the coffin. In the coffin was actually Oldham Football Club, because they were accusing us of killing Oldham Football Club. And I didn't actually think they wanted me dead. I mean, I don't think they'd ever say that. And actually, a lot of the fan ringleaders are actually decent people, and I've spoken to them since. And I think they're just very passionate about their club. But to the outside world, it would look like a totally mental, crazy thing to have done.
Talking about your career, your life so far, what's been the proudest moment so far?
Do you know what? It's a funny question because actually, you kind of the position I'm in with running a couple of businesses is you never really have that moment where you think this was great or you've achieved something. Occasionally, you may have good results, but I was talking to someone about this yesterday. It's either something bad is going on, there's a disaster happening right now, or there's no disaster. That's the kind of status. Status is nothing bad going wrong or something bad going wrong. I've never really stopped and said, oh, this is great or that's great or isn't this brilliant? And sometimes I think people should do that more in their lives and realize what they've got around them and, be grateful that you've got businesses that work or whatever. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I guess I'm just focused on shit stuff going wrong all the time.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I guess that's what you do. But like I say, you've done amazingly well so far. What would you say has been one of your sort of biggest challenges in life so far? You probably haven't talked a little bit about it so far, but
definitely, well, scaling the businesses I've worked with, like Brandsmith in particular, scaling that's been a real challenge. Starting off as a very little tight family, and then trying to make it bigger. We've got like 40 lawyers now.
Wow.
Trying to make that bigger and bigger and bigger, and trying to retain your culture at the same time as expanding. Found that really difficult. Oldham Football Club generally very difficult. That was a really difficult challenge. Yeah, they've been the biggest challenges.
So what haven't you done so far in your career? We'll come on to a bit about what's next, but what haven't you done so far in your career?
What haven't I done?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess what really the next stage is to take the businesses that I've got, and take them to the next stage so that they don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
And that I can leave and it doesn't affect the business. That's got to be the goal. Just
a quick question about social media, really quickly. So, what impact do you think social media's had during your career in sports?
Oh, huge, absolutely huge. It's enabled the athletes and the people in sport to directly connect with the public in a way that it never occurred before, because there'd be layers of people there, and you'd say to your athlete, presumably, I can get you an interview with so and so, or I can get you on this show, or I can do this for you.
On this podcast.
Yeah, I'll get you on Scott McGrowski's podcast. But now it's like, I'll just go live on my Instagram to my 30 million fans. Don't need it.
Well, hopefully you'll be sharing this on them 30 million you've got on your 30 million fans, which I'm very impressed with, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure that listen, any kind of outlet that's doing something is still of great use to people, great use to athletes. It's still of use. It's not to say it's not of use to appear on your podcast or this place or that place, but now the athletes are the bosses.
Yeah. I know we joked about this when we last met football and stuff, about obviously Joe Joyce's interviews and stuff on like TalkSport or telling people that actually he's fighting Parker before it was announced and stuff.
Yeah.
How hard is that as a manager or a lawyer or whatever to what they should give them that sort of scripts or things they shouldn't say? Have you involved
most
much?
of them, yes, a little bit. Sometimes we have certain themes we want them to talk about, certain things to bring out. But the thing about Joe is he's such a terrific bloke. He's such a lovely guy. All I ever want him to do is just come across as himself. And I think at the start of Joe's career, he came across, he was a bit hesitant. He wasn't so clear with his speech in terms of what he was saying. And now I think people are starting to see the real Joe. His last press conference, I really liked him. He was like taking the piss out of Joe Parker a bit. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah. And that's what you want. But yeah, especially with like pay-per-views, you have little themes and messages you want to press. And it's never really, I don't think it affects performance that much, but it will affect the buys for a fight.
So last couple of questions. What are you looking forward to in the future, personally or professionally?
I'm looking forward to people and things and businesses really reaching their potential. I think that's like a real big driver for me. So I'm looking forward to Joe Joyce reaching his potential, becoming a heavyweight world champion. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the businesses being able to the businesses being able to live without me. And and watching those things kind of grow. So that's really like what's exciting. What could happen to the things that I've been working with.
Yeah, and also like sort of on a personal level, like what do you do for fun? Like, obviously you're a hard worker, right? It's very clear to see, and you do a lot of, I see you there. You're there relentless on a Sunday morning. You might have even been to a fight the night before. You're always there watching the kids and stuff. So, but what do you do for fun?
Not much really. Like this is like it's a career, but it's like a life as well.
Yeah.
So I think I really love the work I do. I think, yeah, I guess I do a bit of paddle boarding. Love paddle boarding. Do a bit of paddle boarding, cycling. Like I try and get out on the roads whenever I can. But really, I mean, listen, it definitely takes a toll on your relationships doing work like this, like whether they're like family relationships or whatever. I probably don't see my friends as much as I like to. Don't really see them at all. And that's a bit of a shame. I'd like to see them more.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't really see it as a sad answer. It's just like reality. It's like I love doing what I do. I get to go to different countries, get to go to different places, bring the family as well.
Yeah.
Evie, Ellie and Rian come to a lot of fights. So, it's different, but yeah, I don't go down the pub at 5:30 on a Wednesday afternoon and meet my mates.
Yeah. Celebrate a deal or something you've done. It's kind of like on to the next thing. Yeah, I hear you. Just one last question on that though. Like, do you have to be available like 24 hours a day? Like if someone rings you, Joe Joyce, he's been arrested, hope that does happen, and he's in prison, you've got to go and get how does that work as someone like you do? Do you have to be on 24 hours? I know you've got a team to help you out.
I've got a team, I guess, to some extent, yes. I try not to work from unless it's boxing, I try not to work from about midday on Sunday to about 6 p.m. midday on Saturday to about 6 p.m. on Sunday. Try just to spend that time with the family. But if there's a boxing show, then obviously I'm away. But you try your best. But yeah, you are ultimately, when you run your own businesses, you've got to be on call 24/7. It's a different life.
Have you ever got into the ring before and done a bit of boxing?
I've never had a fight. No, well, I've had street fights, but I've never had an actual fight. No,
you never got into lots of. You obviously been involved with some of the gyms and stuff, maybe occasionally.
Yeah, I've never
done it.
Maybe that's something for the future. Maybe
Maybe you, Joe Joyce, have a little. When he's world champion. So what? So you mentioned a couple of times actually about like leaving the businesses, like being really really good. How do you want to be remembered?
Do you know what? This is a sad question, but probably as someone who created some good things that still have a life now, rather than you finishing and they finish. I think that's always a shame when you do something. I think as a business owner, when you look back at your business, if it finishes when you finish, and sometimes you can be like, this business is me, and it can make you feel good that the business is you. But actually, I think quite a big, strong, significant weakness if the business is just you. So yeah, someone who created good businesses. Yeah,
I think you've done a good job, and like I say, you're still young, still got more years to come. And last question: what's next for you? Anything that you want to mention? Anything you're with projects? Any new fighters you're coming on? Any exclusives?
I'm doing a lot of investing nowadays in different like early stage businesses. Got some really, really interesting ones I've worked with, and I've seen them through the law firm. So that's something I'd like to do more of, because I think that, again, like anything you can do to help bring others kind of potential to life is great. But if it's also makes like good business sense, that's great. I've got a couple of other law projects kind of coming online within the law firm, which are exciting. But yeah, like I'm very excited by. And it's tough that you don't want to be totally excited by new things all the time, because then you never get anything done.
Yeah.
But that is exciting. I do find that exciting, different people starting their own businesses.
Okay. Anything involved with Crystal Palace at all? Anything you might be, any signings or buying the club to anyone, any billionaires in Abu Dhabi or somewhere?
One of our guys actually at Brandsmiths is on to comment at Man United doing all their transfers this window.
Really?
And he's got a lot of stick actually for not doing business, but I think his business is coming to fruition now. He's signed quite a few people. But yeah, they don't tell me anything in the firm anymore. They do.
No,
an
I'm
awful lot
about to
of
say,
work.
you've got any exclusives here that you tell
No
me, and obviously I won't
exclusive.
tell anybody.
Sadly not. No
Ah,
exclusive. But I do think Palace are doing well, Scott. So
I know. And by the way, you guys were very lucky last night. How you got an extra 3 minutes? Liverpool fan here, like extra 3 minute clock. We'll call it the new clock time, right?
yeah.
No, brilliant, mate. Honestly, thank you so much, Adam, for doing this. Like I say, we obviously had a few technical issues which people won't be aware of. But yeah, it's thank you so much and being so open
Pleasure,
and
Scott.
honest.
Thank you for inviting me on.
And like I say, for everybody that's listening, please, subscribe. Please put your comments down there. Anything you want to say nice about Adam. And by the way, mate, it's been honestly amazing to find out what you've been doing. And yeah, thank you again for taking part in the podcast.
Cheers,
and my
Scott.
first ever one, by the way.
No, you've been brilliant. You've been brilliant.
So anyone that you want, because this is going to be massive, as you know. So you've got any of the Joe Joyces when he comes world champion, wants to come on and so let me know, mate. Obviously, but brilliant. Thank you very much, mate. Take
Pleasure,
care,
Scott. Cheers, mate.
Take care, mate. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye bye.